let's maybe just like talk a little bit about ourselves first before we start really talking about the Indiegogo campaign for Comingle. So I think everyone here so far definitely knows me. But,
You need no
uh,
introduction.
right. Yeah. Been at Basecamp for a while now. And but I'd really like to introduce everybody to both Conrad and Josh. And I think everybody here probably knows Conrad too. Um, but if not, then yeah, Conrad, just want to speak a little bit about how people may not know you and the projects you've been working on, and then I think it'd be fun to for Josh to introduce himself too.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. I've been working on UBI stuff for the last 7 years. We've been basically building stuff under the radar for a long time to get ready to share something um, big and powerful, and hopefully, gin up the movement to the next level. I chose the name the UBI guy because I really like when people reach out to me and say, "Actually, I think of Scott Santens as the UBI guy," and I get to defend myself. Um, no, but the different projects I've been working on, we started in 2017 with the Bootstraps docuseries, and the idea of that is we fundraised and ran a UBI pilot across the country for 11 different households, and they got UBI for 2.5 years, and we filmed the whole thing, and that's currently in post production to share. And then, in the spirit of having it be a real, movement building, change making initiative, um, sort of some other stuff came out of that. A lot of my writing, I built the UBI calculator to sort of analyze different proposals and give people something to share. And then Comingle is Comingle. The idea is it's a way to take the excitement of an idea and put it into practice. So Comingle is building the first permanent scalable UBI. And that, I guess I can introduce my partner Josh, who's here under the name Commingler One, which I suggest if you want to stay in touch with all these, with the spaces and with the movement, follow Commingler One, follow me. We'll do some polls and things, and we want you guys to help us decide what we're going to talk about, what we're who we're going to invite on, and stuff like that.
Yes, we're uh, kind of unfollowed. We don't have a giant. We're just building up our Twitter presence right now. So
We're nascent.
we're yes, but yeah, I'm kind of coming at UBI from a bit of a different angle, I think, than these guys. And so yeah, I'd been thinking a lot about a few years back, just like as I have a background as a freelance interface designer, so I often have have sporadic income where sometimes I'm working a lot and getting some good money. Other times I'm just kind of figuring out ways to pay the bills, and so that led me to think, well, there's a whole bunch of people just like me in this same boat where we're all uh, kind of have these peaks and valleys in our income. So it's like, well, maybe there's a way that we can come up with a way that we can almost unionize in a way to so that we can share in each other's successes and help each other out when people are kind of out of work or between gigs. So it's kind of like coming from like the gig economy angle of like if this is the way that work is starting to happen now, maybe we need some kind of some safety net for when things aren't going our way. And then as I started exploring that, I was like, well, I guess this is just UBI. This is, and the more I heard about it, the more I was reading Scott and Conrad's stuff. I was like, I think it's very much in the same vein. And so I got in touch with Conrad because he made this cool thing called the UBI calculator, which was it's very sort of data driven tool that lets you explore different UBI policies and And the one thing that it really covers is like, how is it going to be paid for, which is sort of one of the first big questions that most people ask about UBI. And so that's the way that we're thinking of it is very much in line with the way that UBI actually works, is that there is somebody that needs to be paying for it, and in a sense we're all paying for it. And so that's, Comingle makes that part of it much more apparent, that our participation in making this system work is key to having it, to having the ability to, share money. So, yeah.
One thing I think that it would be fun to just for everyone to learn a little bit more about you, Josh, just because I feel like everyone knows more about me and Conrad. But one thing I thought was fun to learn even recently myself is I didn't know that you had done like the moon thing that you won like the Webby for. So that was fun.
Yeah. So that was just an experiment I did a while ago, where I was when my daughter was little, we were reading this book about it's like a Dr. Seuss book about the solar system, and there's a picture that shows all of the planets like right next to each other, and she's like, well, why can't we just go there? And then I was like, this is fairly inaccurate, this picture that shows Jupiter right next to Saturn. And so I was like, let's see if we can put this like on a page and to really map it out. And then, it got very interesting pretty fast. And then, it sort of took off, made the rounds. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're just like I feel you're really good at like visualizations and like putting together like really like clean kind of like understandable like visual stuff.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I get into that. It's I have a background as a cartoonist in college. I did cartoons, and so it's kind of the similar thing, and you're just trying to like pare down an idea to just one quick little visual.
Yeah, I lean on Josh all the time. He's a really good communicator and writer, and he makes things fun and quirky. If any of you have seen any of his videos, we'll have a bunch of those sorts of things dropping this month, and things to share, fun content, because this really needs to be a movement building effort. We need to tap back into the energy of like a political campaign, except we're not doing something political. We're actually avoiding the politics entirely by creating a completely voluntary system where we can all just try it out with the power of internet technology.
Yeah, and just the internet culture in general it's a much different tone than like political activism. Not that there's anything wrong with it, and it's a very powerful tool. But I think because this is an internet, Comingle's an internet-based tool, I think it's we're trying to just align the voice more with that culture. We're trading in memes and reaction gifs much more than we are in like picket signs. So.
Yeah. So it's 12:13 now. It's just we've been talking about Comingle, and the main reason is because the big news for today is that the Comingle Indiegogo crowdfunder has launched, and the goal of the crowdfund is to crowdfund $75,000 within the next month to get Comingle back being developed, since it's been kind of on pause for a bit, and it's also been in like the we call it the play money beta phase, where it's developed enough to be at the point where a few people have their bank accounts connected, and then there's like simulations going on with this to learn from those simulations. And now we need to get to the point where it can be fully launched, and at least with the next stage of beta, with real money being passed between people's bank accounts to create this small basic income for through the Comingle mechanism. I've never been put in 7%, and everyone getting the same UBI back in return. And so, yeah, we over the next month we're going to be doing more spaces like this, and there'll be fun surprises and fun videos to share. Again, like Josh is really good at these visualizations and videos. So yeah, he's already got some great videos lined up that are like super fun. I love them.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. And
we're going to try to have some good guests on too. And one of the things we'll do is, if you're following us, we'll tweet out polls and stuff. I think we'll probably do it from Comingler 1 up there, asking who should we have on, what should we talk about, how often should we have these spaces, because this is all about connecting with the UBI movement to build this together.
Yeah. And should we even mention who the guest is for tomorrow yet, or should we wait a bit to
I feel like it's worth a mention, and we can bring it up again later for anyone else who shows up.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea. Yeah, so tomorrow Andrew Yang is going to join us to be part of this discussion about Comingle, and ask some questions to him, and he's going to be able to talk about what he thinks about Comingle, and also his book is coming out soon too, so he'll be able to mention a bit about that as well. I think it'll be fun. As one of the people who has read the book before release, it's a fun one. So yeah, looking forward to that conversation tomorrow, and that's going to be 12 p.m. Eastern. And after this, I'll share out that link so everybody can get that scheduled and stuff.
Hey, quick technical question. I've never done a space before. Is there like a place where there's a chat feed where we can see what people are saying, or how does that work? Like, how do people talk to us before we open it up for like actual voices and questions? Because I know people probably have a lot, and I don't see them. I don't know how to find them.
If you click like the lower right bottom of the screen, at least that's the way it is on mine, there's like a little like comment, like cloud kind of like speech bubble.
And it takes us to the tweet, and it's all in the comments.
Right, and then people.
There's Angie.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. All right, yeah. So if you guys start throwing in questions in there, and it can help us guide the conversation too. We have plenty to tell you about, but we don't want you to just listen to us babble on. If you've got questions that you're that you want answered, that you're hung up on or whatever, we want to know what you want to know.
Yeah, and then another thing I'm doing is I actually have I have my laptop open too, and so then I have that muted, and I'm able to watch that feed of comments and stuff, and then have this other thing separate.
So we've had 2 from Angie, right? That's all, or am I missing stuff?
Yeah, she's replied a couple times. She said good morning and some X's, and I think she's trying to get Elon Musk's attention.
Yeah.
Thanks, Angie.
Okay, cool.
So everybody, again, we check out both. You can find it on my timeline, on Conrad's timeline, on the Comingle timeline, and also, again, be sure to follow and be good to subscribe to Comingle's tweets too, so you don't miss anything. But yeah, the Indiegogo campaign is live right now, and actually, yeah, let's do a quick update even as to what it's at. So looks like so far there are 225 backers donating a total of $21,796 to the goal of 75,000. So it's already 29% of the way there. So starting off hot.
Yeah, and I think so. We switched to Indiegogo instead of Kickstarter, and I think there's a lot of powerful things that we can do as for the people who are in this with us and really want to help promote it. People can people can donate multiple times, $1 each time, doesn't matter, but that bumps up our backer numbers. It's an opportunity to share. And there's a lot of cool ways to send out the updates and everything. I think that's one thing we're going to be trying to explore more. What are the tools available for actual movement building that's beyond just us, as Comingle, you're sending emails out to people saying, hey, we're this company that wants your support and you should believe in us. That's not super, inspiring to me ever when a company does that. It's more when someone I know really cares about something and shares something with me. So we're going to be trying to find ways to really engage the people who are supporting and part of the movement to take ownership of this with us, because we're building it for you. Part of what we're doing to that end is we're not taking investments. That's why we're doing a crowdfunder. We haven't taken any investments so far, and we're not planning to take any investments that would give anyone shares, because we do not want this company being something that sells out to make money off of ads, to sell personal data. We're trying to do something different that is specifically focused on being a tool for the public and for public benefit.
Yeah, I think that's really important for people to understand, and also I think a great reason to support the Indiegogo is just that, yeah, we really trying to avoid, the stringed hands, the puppet hands of Silicon Valley money, where they say, "Oh, we'll help your new app / platform get off the ground, and we can't wait to get a massive amount of the profits, and we're going to make this all about profits, and we're going to." We swear we're not going to touch anything, and we'll just let you do your thing. And then later on, it's, well, no, we've got to crank up that profit. So we've got to do this and this and that. And then suddenly the entire point, the original point, is like lost in this need to increase revenue and profits. So yeah, from the very beginning, this is about staying true to the goal of just making sure that this platform can get launched and can start doing its thing as far as being a permanent, sustainable, scalable, small basic income platform. I guess maybe too we should even talk about a little about the mechanism, because I know that I've already seen a couple questions on Twitter, even before the space even started, about some confusion around the mechanism. And so just like a very easy way of like understanding it is, this is everyone pays in the same percentage and everyone gets back the same amount on a weekly basis. It's essentially a universal basic income funded by a flat income tax model of it would be a 7%. And as those who understand like the difference and similarities between a universal basic income and a negative income tax, you can also think of the net outcome of the Comingle mechanism as being a negative income tax with a 7% phase out rate. So as you get closer to the average income of the entire community, then you are essentially getting back what you put in. And at that point, it's actually functioning as a stabilizer. So I added a little bit about that in my blog post I published today, where an example of that is that if the payout is $50 per week and someone is getting paid like once every 2 months and they're like at twice the average, then they would essentially net zero, but they would get this like kind of additional $50 per week boost instead of having zero over that time. So that goes back even to what Josh was talking about. It's just being this like income smoother / stabilizer.
Yeah, basically it's just money pooling but automated. They have susus and table banking and things like this that people compare this to all the time, which is similar, or like tithing in the Mormon church. But the biggest difference here is there is no paternalistic mechanism. There is no bureaucrat or boss or person running a foundation who's deciding who's of need. There's no application to say, I had an emergency, I want to tap into this community insurance fund. It's basically saying everyone needs a certain amount of money all the time, so we're going to automatically deliver that certain amount of money to everyone all the time, every week in real time, and it's responsive to your ongoing income, not like last year's taxes or something like that, because when you sign up, you connect your bank accounts, you get your income tracked. One other thing about the mechanism that's really important to understand is, so 7% is a pledge. And there's important things about that. People say I can't afford 7%, but it's defrayed by the amount you get back as the payout. So 65% of people will get more back than they would pledge, and you'd have to be making a couple $100,000 at least to be on the net giving in more than like 5 or 6%. Most people will come out with more money than they put in. The other thing that's very important, because we aren't the federal government and we can't just give people money and create money out of thin air and then tax it back, is that we don't actually make people send the money into the pot first and then give it back. We do it all as calculations, because the last thing we want to do is be like withdrawing money from people who are eventually getting money, people who have low bank accounts. We do all the calculations and figure out the net transfers. So once a week, if you're a recipient that week, then you get one transaction, which is you getting however much money is the difference between how much you put in and get out. And similarly, once a week, if you're a net giver that week, you have one transaction where you put in the money, and it's less than 7%. It's 7% of your income minus say it's $50 that we all got back. So if you're supposed to put in $100 and we're all getting back 50, once a week you put in 50. If you're supposed to put in $20 and we're all getting about 50, that week you get 30. So it's very simple and automated.
Yeah, that's the part that I think has been the hardest for us to communicate, is that because we're doing just a single transaction every week, that the math is working out to give you or to have you contribute, or to send you the difference between what you would have pledged if you were the very top earner, and what you would get back after the dividends are divided.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure you guys all know the thing you run into all the time when you're talking about UBI is, why would we give it to Bill Gates, right? And that's a never-ending conversation of like, we won't, because he'll get taxed more, and it's just hard for people to wrap their heads around. What we're actually building is the mechanism that shows what's actually happening. So if Bill Gates is a member, he's pledging $1 million a week or whatever based on his income and getting back $50. So we're giving 50 to Bill Gates, but we're not giving him an extra 50. UBI, really well understood, is a floor of income for everybody. It's not extra money for everybody. So the theory of change here for UBI is not only just putting it into practice, but also making it experiential to the point where it's like, I use the example of a board game, where the first time you're going to play a board game, you sit around with your friends and you all read the instructions for like an hour, and there's no real way to communicate it in letters and words how it works, but you try to understand, you read through, and then at some point someone's like, okay, just roll the dice. Jesus. And someone rolls the dice, you move your piece, and you're like, oh, that's how it works. And like one turn into the game, everyone's like, I get it. That's what we're building here, is like, we're going to move past that whole conversation we've been having for 5 years and just put people in a situation where a week or two in, they'll be like, oh, I get it. We're not giving money to Bill Gates.
I kind of like the idea of that slogan on a T-shirt for this is just roll the dice, Jesus. And yeah,
at this point, it seems like the best move done.
Yeah. One of the things that I think is really important, definitely about just all of Comingle, is this ability to really understand via a demonstration where you're actually part of it. And so I think one of these things that also gets people is that you can use this to actually help explain the difference between like marginal tax rates and effective tax rates. So, people think it's the reason why people think, oh, a flat income tax is, regressive, that's a bigger deal for the poor than it is for the rich. And when you combine this with the UBI mechanism, then it's functioning as essentially as a rebate. And so what happens is like if you look at the person who's got the average income, and so let's say the average income of 1,000 people within the Comingle community is $40,000, and so that is the average, and someone who has exactly the amount has that, and so then they're paying in 7%, and then they're getting back the exact same amount they're putting in. So their effective tax rate is zero, even though their marginal tax rate is 7%. And then it's a sliding scale. So then as you go down the income ladder, then it goes, down, down, down. So, someone who is, putting in $100 and getting $50 back, or getting in, putting in $0 and getting $50 back, I'm sorry, then they are actually, they have a negative tax rate. So, they are putting in 7%, but because the rebate's larger than what they're putting in, then the tax rate's negative. And so then as you go, as you approach zero, then it gets, as the crossover point, it gets to zero. And then above that point, it turns positive. And then, when it comes to your Bill Gates, I calculated this as part of my blog post that I just put out, where it works out to a effective tax rate of like 6.9999999% for Bill Gates. But if you're right on the other side of the neutral line, then it's just like a 1% effective tax rate for you. So this is something that the percentages and amounts differ depending on where you are in the scale, and so many people just don't get that. They just think of UBI as being, everyone gets the exact same thing, and then there's no taxation model at all. And I think that kind of hurts the conversation. So this will hopefully further getting people to think of, well, what are the ways to tax this? Apparently one way is a flat income tax, but also, is that the best way? Maybe there's some other ways to do this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just kind of a hard thing to communicate, and I think just having those the terms, marginal and effective tax rates is those are the words to describe exactly what we're doing. But I think it's the sort of thing that, you say the word tax rates and it sort of just makes people space out or something. Over. Yeah. So I don't actually. So we've been really struggling with that. And
there's no set of words. You just have to show it. You just have to roll the dice.
Right. Yeah.
We got a couple of questions in.
Oh, good. Okay.
Emmanuel asked, how was the 7% decided? Yeah, that's definitely a number we could put anywhere. 7% was decided so that for two main reasons. One is so it's not so big as to be scary. Like 7%, a lot of people give 5% or 10% to charity. So even the biggest givers would still be in that range, like the people who are pretty wealthy. And it's also, it can scare people away when they don't understand that it's a net transfer. But yeah, 7% is enough that it shouldn't be scary, because 65% of people will come out ahead, and like 80% of people will either come out ahead or give like less than 1% or 2%. It's also big enough to be a significant payout. So we're shooting for like a minimum of around $45-50 a week as a starting point, where $50 a week to every adult in the household is huge. It can be a game changer for people who really need a little stability, a little money coming in, for keeping on the lights. It's electric bill, it's a grocery trip. It's an amount that's big enough to make a difference, right? And then the way the disbursement is calculated is another question Emmanuel had, is It's very simple. We take all the money that's pledged, we put it into a pot. We lose 3% or so to financial transactions fees and stuff with third-party vendors. Comingle takes 1% for our revenue, which at a certain point we start putting back towards new tools for the public. So 96% of the money that goes through goes right back out, and we just chop it up into equal share, give it to everybody. And everyone gets it. There's no other decisions to be made.
But also, just to clarify, like, that's another point of confusion, is that you're not actually getting that money. Like, there's not an actual bank transfer that's occurring in that amount, in the same way that there's no withdrawal of the 7%. The transfer is different from the calculation. So we're talking about as if you're actually we're giving it back to people, but we're not exactly doing it. It's being applied to a ledger that's being kept on your behalf. Anyway,
yeah, I guess you could think of it as like the calculation is a UBI calculation, but the distribution is like a negative income tax. So it's not as say messy as all those different to and fro. It's simplified, and but the model is a UBI, even if people receive different amounts depending.
Yeah, the user experience is just, we saw what you made this week and what everyone else made. This week, you're going to be giving this much, or this week, you're going to be getting this much, and then that happens, like this is how the group did. So that it's not like trying to work through a Rubik's Cube to understand what happened. Right. It should be pretty simple. I wanted to say something that's also really important to understand about Comingle is this isn't just like a tool for small groups of people. Like, they have some of these out there where it's like, you and your buddies pool your money in case someone hits big and you can all do well. But then you have to like select who's in it or whatever. What we're building is meant to be inclusive and scalable to anyone, to grow to any size. So, our ambitious goal is to have 100,000 people on the platform by the end of the first year, which means we'll be moving around $100 million between them a year, like towards people who need it more. The efficiency in the mechanism allows so much money to move in a positive direction with so little waste that it should dwarf the impact of other foundations, of other initiatives that exist out there. And what's more, it allows it to be permanent. What's very different about this than all of the awesome pilots and things we've been seeing from Mayors for Guaranteed Income, and there's like 100 around the country. But the problem with the model is that they're not really pilots, they're demonstrations. They're not made to continue forever. It's basically take a big pot of some rich guy's money or some government money, decide how much we can give to how many people for how long before it's gone, and do that, right? It's not actually funding it like an actual government would. It's like money that came from elsewhere. What we're doing with this is we're creating basically our own little government that runs a real UBI and can last forever. So what we're really creating is the first permanent scalable UBI model as a place for the movement to live and grow indefinitely. And there's no limit to how big it can get and how much money we can be moving. And if we start growing to a scale where we've got thousands or hundreds of thousands and the money that's flowing through, we can start to do some really cool stuff with all of that together, and organizing wise and just investing in ourselves wise.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are already asking kind of like, where do we go from here as far as, the successes of the pilots. It's just like pilot after pilot, you hear these great stories and then they end, and, like maybe they try to create something permanent, but only one of those pilots has achieved any kind of permanence so far, and that's in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And even that program isn't a basic income; it's for specific group. And what I think is important to do is to move beyond that, and really, in order to do that, you have to have a perpetual payment, and there needs to be a perpetual funding mechanism that is through this. It's self-funding. Like right now, in order to create the platform, it requires capital to get off the ground. But I think the brilliance of the mechanism is that once you have a sufficient number of people signed up for it, then you're actually funding not only people's payment amounts, but you're also um, making sure that the overhead for the Comingle platform itself is covered. And then above that, it actually starts generating and increasing its surplus amount of revenue above and beyond the administration expenses, which I think is where things get really interesting too.
Yes,
Yeah,
like if we're picturing that additional money that's being collected for the company as a source of power for the members, because when bigger amounts of money are much more useful than smaller amounts, and so we're envisioning ways that the that those bigger pools of money can be accessed by the members in the future, and voted on through some sophisticated voting mechanisms as to how it should be used, and people being allowed to propose different ways that it can be used. And yeah,
this is why no shareholders is so important.
Yeah.
Because if we get to 1 million people and we're starting to become a full-blown like network, or we've long since become one, the amount of money that'll be coming in through that 1% is way more than we need for our overhead. We'll be bringing in like $500,000 a year. That if we had investors, they'd say, "Oh, cool, thanks. Now I have $1 billion." But what we want to do with it is take that money and build new tools like free online banking options, or to help the unbanked get on the platform. Or, we have a whole laundry list of ideas. The bigger we get, this is what we could fund, right? Including eventually endowing stuff in other countries that can't really afford their own UBI the way the American public can. There's really no limit to what we can do the bigger we get. Like the bigger we get, the stronger we get. And that's why the motto is strength in numbers. It's like the hashtag math. It's like a nod at that. But it's also just, it's a group of people pooling all of their resources together in a very efficient way can do a lot.
I want to add to something earlier too, where you answered the question about where the 7% came from. But I think something interesting that people might want to know about is that even though the 7% was basically arbitrarily decided on Comingle's end as far as like being kind of a sweet spot kind of percentage, there is actually a model out there for a national UBI that actually uses the 7% flat income tax, and it was modeled and written up. You can find it by Miranda Perry Fleischer. And so what is 7% flat income tax? It would be a flat surtax. So everybody's income tax would increase by 7%, and the result would be the funding of $500 per month per child and adult in the U.S. So that would be a fully universal basic income of $500 a month, funded by an additional 7% flat tax on income. And I think that's really interesting to consider through the Comingle lens too, as being the amount that Comingle is looking to do with a 7% tax, of course, is much smaller than $500 a month, because the amount of inequality in this country is just obscenely massive. It's hard to even comprehend. So actually, one of the videos that Josh is going to be that Josh made, that Comingle will be releasing, will be like an attempt to really visualize just how extremely unequal things are. I don't know if you wanted to talk about that at all too, Josh. Want to tease that a bit about kind of explaining even just how unequal things are.
Yeah. That 7% becomes more effective the more it starts to uh, feed from the very, very tiniest top 10 people in the country, basically. Like those 10 people contributing 7% make more difference than I think I don't have this quite right, the bottom 50% of people contributing 7%. So the I think just having some concept of just how vast the the wealth gap is can sort of put some perspective on, like, you kind of picture, like, well, what if Elon Musk or some other billionaire just took all their money, dissolved it, and just gave us each some of it. And it's not an insignificant amount of money. Like, it does actually work out to be, I forget exactly what it is, but you'll see some money. And it won't change your life. But if those 10 people did the same thing, we'd see a difference in the economy. And if you take all 720 billionaires, I think, something like that, and did the same thing, then you start to, like, there's a shift in how our country is set up. And there's complications, of course, and like how you can't exactly have everybody dissolve all of their net worth, because then those big companies then start to fall apart when those big companies are part of how people are making a living. But there's it's just yeah, I kind of did a deep dive into the just that actual chart that we're used to seeing that visualizes the curve, and like where how most of the wealth is pooled at the top 1% of that in the top percentile.
It's actually a hilarious video. I mean, all these are all posted. The ones we've already posted, we'll be sharing, but you can go to the Comingle channel on YouTube and kind of scroll through these. They're pretty great.
Yeah. I just I'll add too that I just did a quick model for my the blog post I put out today, which was so I was curious about, like, what was Bill Gates, his like average income, instead of looking at his wealth. And apparently his average income for like years has been around $1.8 billion per year. And I was like, all right, well, so how does that work out? And if the Comingle community had 100,000 people in it, and the current average payout was around $50 per week, then Bill Gates joining Comingle would boost it by about $40 per week. And I was like, that's kind of interesting to
I mean,
think
that's
about.
fascinating to me. That's why I like the strength in numbers thing too. Is people are always like, you need to get millionaires on here, and you're never gonna do it. They're never gonna give to something like this. And I tell them, no, that's not true. Not that we'll never get millionaires. I don't know. Maybe eventually, maybe not. But the point of what we're building here is that we don't need them. Once we get big enough, like a Bill Gates coming or going might mean $1 difference in the payout. Nobody cares because we're so much stronger in numbers than any individual millionaire. So the idea of the platform is that it should work as long as we have a range of incomes. We can't just have a million people join who all have zero income, because then they're shuffling around $0. Or if they're all low income, then you have low income people giving money to lower income people. So we do need to waitlist it, especially as we grow, to make sure that the average income of the group is high enough, that the payout stays high enough, that people who are like, below 200% of the poverty line aren't paying in, right? But as we get bigger, the bigger we get, the more resilient it is, and the payout is more steady. Even if some millionaire comes and goes, it shouldn't matter.
Right, and there is a certain amount of, like, there are a lot of like mutual aid groups and different loan systems that are set up for like smaller communities where pretty much the people in the community are all kind of at the same basic level, struggling and just trying to look for some other way to, like, make it through the month or whatever. And so you get, different methods of like rotating funds where everybody pitches in, and then there's this amount of money that then each person has access to, like, once a year or something like that. And that does help, and that is sort of factored into Comingle, but it's based really on the sort of sporadic nature of people's income, so that you're getting money when you happen to not have it that week, and you're giving it when you do happen to have it. But that doesn't really like replace what could be funded by having by people that have much higher incomes participating.
Yeah, if we're modeling a UBI in a country like it's a self-selected country. It's a nation of Comingle members. It's showing like a similar model of what would happen if we did this nationally, federally, except nationally, federally, everyone could be compelled to be part of it. And then, so the payouts would be bigger and all that stuff. It'd be a full-blown UBI. But when is that going to happen politically? When are people actually going to take it seriously enough to do it? I think it's too fundamentally power disrupting that it won't ever happen on its own without a big movement. So this is how we build a movement and show it working for a lot of people already. So I want to say we have 10 minutes left, or 9 minutes left. Maybe we take one or two questions if people want to raise their hands, and then we've got things people can do. We got an announcement to remind of, and then here's how you can help. So for now, does anyone have a question they want to ask that we can answer?
Yeah, and you can, I guess, what is it? Raise your hand or something in the
request to speak or whatever
in
the
the
button
setup,
is.
or just a reply or on Twitter. And I guess while we're waiting for someone to ask something too, another thing that I just wanted to mention, maybe something to be thinking about even as like a way to help, aside from being a part of the Indiegogo campaign, which also has a awesome steel cup that people can add on to theirs too, to show that they are a founding contributor to Comingle. So that's really cool. But then the thing I wanted to mention too is just be thinking about we think that the main obstacle will be, how do we attract the people who are the net payers? And I do believe they're out there, but the challenge is, what's the best way to find them? What's the best way to communicate to them, to get them to be a part of it? As we seek out those above the average, who are those people? I'm one of those people because obviously I'm, really care about this concept, but I think that there's other people out there who don't even necessarily need to know anything about basic income that can think that, oh, what a great way to, give a percentage of my income. If they're slightly above the average income, then maybe for them, the net outcome is a 1% tax on their income after the rebate of the Comingle payments, and they know that at that point 1% of their income is actually going to a bunch of people to help stabilize and boost their incomes who are below the average. And I think that's just like a really kind of cool possibility that's totally new and different than the typical platforms that GoFundMe and stuff, where you've got like individual stories, and people get selected because of the virality of their stories, instead of this mechanism being like, no, let's actually cover everybody in a small way. Let's make sure that everybody gets at least something. And yeah, that's entirely new.
Americans give $500 billion to charity every year. knowing full well that it's like 20, 30, 40% of it is going to go to salaries. It's going to go only to some of the people who apply for it or should get to it. It's going to come in forms that are, not what they need. There's a lot of waste in it. And if we can tell them, hey, 97% of every dollar that you put in, if you're a net contributor, is going to go to someone within the week, and they're going to get the whole thing, and they're going to use it how they want to. And here's how, the group has been doing on the money that has flown through so far.
Yeah, you hear a joke a lot. People talk about giving to charity. Like people will, if they don't have money, joke around. I'm giving to the charity of me. Like I'm giving to the Me Foundation. And like it's if you don't have money, it's not really a joke. Like you probably are the best place, the best recipient for your charitable funds. So it's kind of leaning into that, where it's like maybe it isn't you this week, and maybe it isn't you that you're giving to, but the individuals themselves, we as a group, are a worthwhile charity, really.
Hey, did we get any questions, Scott? Anyone ask?
Dave, do you have a question you want to ask?
Well, hi there.
Hey, Dave.
Think I'm on. Thanks for having me on. Hey, I've wanted to pick up and have a chat with you guys and just say, well, first of all, it's a really inspiring idea, and thanks for putting it out there. And my interest is that I've written a book that's about a lot of the concepts like this that could form a base for human beings to get economically arm's length from the survival economy, and that was my fascination. And this framework's great. I just wondered if you guys had heard of an organization called Proof of Humanity, which is doing a very similar thing, but with blockchain. And also there's a beyond kind of what you've done, which is a way of just involving people. And I hesitate to say it's symbolic. It's definitely not, because you get practical. You could see what it does and that sort of thing. But I can hear what you guys are saying about it being at this stage a way of politically engaging people in something that's tangible, and it just I can't applaud it enough. So, but I wondered if anybody's thought of the idea that a platform like this could be the way to get people engaged in it would be to have it's like PayPal. I don't know how it is super complex to consider this, but I wonder if someone will come up with it, which is a platform which you're using as a shopping or a payment platform, and from that you take transaction fees, and those transaction fees actually pay out to any human being that's on that network, and all you do is commit to using it always for every transaction. And that, of course, has a network effect because people want to be on it because they get paid out, but they'll also use it. So it kind of makes it a bit more sticky, if you see what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's interesting to bring up the connection with Proof of Humanity and even just all of crypto in general. And I think that's probably even like a good episode to have, like a good space to have, where we'll be kind of talking with maybe a couple people from the UBI crypto projects out there, and be able to discuss this, because it's interesting how if you look at Proof of Humanity and the UBI coin, it's the mechanism of providing something that doesn't have any value to people, but it has this value is created by people's belief in it and how they trade it, and that trading amount. So, everyone's getting the same thing who've signed up for this, but then the amount it could be equivalent to, $5 a month. It could be equivalent to 25 cents a month. Like it could skyrocket in price and then be worth, a couple $100 a month. Like you never know when it comes to these projects. And whereas what Comingle is looking to do is saying, yeah, we know that is a viable way of doing this, because like you can create currency, you can create local currencies, and that can have value, and you can distribute it as UBI. But if you distribute it as money, and its actual percentage of everyone's income, then you have this this real stability to it, and that doesn't fluctuate in value. like other systems would. And I think that that's been missing. Like I've loved to see all the crypto projects that have been launched, but this is definitely something that has been missing from the space.
Yeah, amazing. That's all from me,
Okay,
by the way.
thanks, Dave.
So thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Hey, Dave. Actually, I'm curious about your book a little bit.
Sure.
Are you sort of digging into like different cultures that have done these kind of like money sharing operations? Because I'm just doing some research into that, and if you've already done it, that would be great to.
Sure. No, it's more a historical deep dive on both money and the automation. So a lot of the things are crossover with things that actually Scott has talked about, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
But it's much more about money, where it comes from, but also how we tax exactly and why,
Mm-hmm.
and how all of that comes about. And there's a lot of myths. There's a big myth, really, I guess, about what we think tax is.
Mm-hmm.
It's not theft and so on. And so I think a lot of those things have to actually be dissolved before we can get people into the space very easily, because there's a lot of attachment to the idea of taxpayers when actually the economy pays for everything, not taxpayers. It doesn't work like that. So I wanted to do a historical deep dive on that, really
Mm-hmm.
analyze where income tax comes from, where it even started, because it's totally modern. It's
Mm-hmm.
an invention, before for the Franco-British War, and so it's really relatively new. Once they worked out that they could, tax that way, it changed the entire economy. So unpacking that and unpicking it means you can actually look. We could really be taxing the economy in a completely different way,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's where the book went. And actually, researching and uncovering that was really a lot of fun, which I
Mm-hmm.
didn't expect to be, because I thought this is a really dry subject. But actually, there's a lot going on with how we fund things that really should be much more broadly known. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds interesting, because it is sort of something that we kind of like stumbled into, is just the idea that the way that taxes work is there's a real, like, we don't even want to use the word tax. Like, basically what your 7% pledge that you're giving to Comingle is a tax, but we can't use that word, because it's like it's evil. It's like something that someone is doing to you, and that you're having. It's like, yeah, some sort of theft. It's not this like participatory activity that you're embarking on. It's not something that you should feel good about.
yeah, I mean, at a national level, money literally can't exist without it. You can't have a monopoly on money
Yeah.
at all,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what really needs to be taught in schools, even, because this idea that taxes theft is a really dangerous one, because
Mm-hmm.
communities that try to exist without taxation don't have a currency for very
It's
long.
the delusion
Mm-hmm.
of rugged individuality,
Yeah.
individualism, that's just like so harmful to our, our our species. To be honest, our
Yeah, I
society.
mean, it's sort of harmful. It's sort of useful also. Like, it's everybody sort of taking stock of themselves and being like, I'm the one who's going to make this happen. It's a pretty cool American idea, but it then has this dark side of like, I'm the only one. Like, I'm in this all by myself, and so like giving some of what I've earned through my through all of my hard work and individualism back to anybody is some sort of robbery, right? And it's like, it just doesn't work that way.
I think the argument definitely works to incentivize people to a point, but of course, you don't want to be able to say that you can take money away from people because of your success, to the point of zero. That's just crazy, because you was it Alex Tocqueville, when he was visiting the US, but he observed that there was the opposite of Europe at the time, and he noticed that with democracy in a young America then, this is like in the 1820s from the top of my head, there's a sense that people were able to do things, where in Europe you could see people were degraded, and you can't have a democracy when people are degraded. too far because they can't participate. They're in survival mode, and lifting people above that changes the whole equation. And in fact, we just don't understand the implications of something like a UBI well enough. And that's not a criticism. That's like we don't understand the good implications of it enough.
I wanted to get another question from Matthew Clouds.
Sure.
I know we're already running a few minutes late, but we can. I mean, I can stay on a bit extra.
I was thinking the same thing, Scott. What if we, because we told a bunch of people an hour, I wanted to get out a couple of like an update and a couple like calls to action, and then we can continue to chat for as long as people want to stay.
Sure.
So yeah, the question is, okay, we're doing movement building. We want these things to keep happening. We want this space to get bigger each time. The first announcement is Andrew Yang's on tomorrow at the same time. So anyone who wants to come see that, we're going to be talking to Andrew. Share it with your friends, share it widely. Let's try to make it a big group. Let's see. Follow us all, Comingler, in order to. We'll tweet out some survey tweets and things like that after this, because we want you guys to help us decide, who's going to be on next, and at them so we can all like it and upvote it or suggest topics. So yeah, we'll have some survey tweets and some polls, but also in the comments of those, do suggestions and then read through and like all the ones that you like, and we'll see which ones are the most popular, and we'll try to make those happen. You can get on our newsletters. There's one at comingle.us. It's probably the easiest one to get on. And Scott and me have a foundation we just started to help fund these projects called the ITSA Foundation. So it's a foundation.org. Sign up for those. And share it widely, donate, and tell your friends. You can donate recurring $1 a day or whatever to help boost the numbers, because when we bring this out to the public, we want them to see lots and lots of backers, lots of donations as it grows. And the more of that social proof that exists there, the more that people are willing to take that leap of faith and believe in something. So yeah, these are the things we're going to be working on as we move forward. And stay. If you're excited about this, stay with us. If you're on the fence, stay tuned. If you're still curious, the whole point of this is we want people to join us who are really excited to join us. We want this to grow organically. So if that's not you yet, totally fine. If it is, let's do it.
Great.
Yeah.
Matthew Clouds, do you have your question or comment? Hello? Are you?
He's muted.
Or are you muted?
Matthew, you're muted.
Still muted?
You got a little microphone button you can press down on the left of your...
Oh, lost him. Oh, he's back. You gonna try again? Does it?
There he is. Oh no, he's a listener now.
Okay.
There was another question in the chat, I think, from
JP.
So
the question was, I'm in a noisy environment, otherwise I'd speak. So what strikes me is how this is not unlike any other startup. You're searching for traction toward critical mass. 1, do you have a prototype test formulated? And 2, actually, let's just cover that first before we do the next one. Do you have a prototype test formulated?
We do have a prototype test formulated. It is working using simulated money. We've got about 22 people that are using it right now, and we're gathering feedback, and we've got a lot of feedback, and we want to incorporate that as soon as we can, which is what a lot of the crowdfund money will be going into. And yeah, it is a startup, and for whatever that means. And so and sometimes that's good to be in that startup environment because it's very active and there's a lot of exciting things happening in it. And other times it's a little rough because we're being perceived as just another startup. and there are a lot of them.
There's one key difference I like to point out in terms of business model and the growth and the critical mass, where most internet companies, the model is, you build a platform, social media or whatever, and you put lots and lots of money into it and marketing to try to get it to the point where there's a critical mass, like several million people are addicted enough to it and use it enough that at that point you pull the trigger on monetizing it, which means all of a sudden you start showing them all ads, you start sneaking ads in, you start selling their data, ways to make money back on the original investment. Because Comingle is built specifically like a utility, and the revenue stream is built in and proportional from day one as a percentage of the number of members there are. 1% of however many members, 7% contributions. There's revenue from the moment we have 2 or more people on the platform, and that's very small at first. But there comes a tipping point where it's critical mass. But because it's built in like that, we're making promises like we'll never go public and have an IPO, we'll never sell ads, we'll never steal personal data or anything like that, because the business model is built in from the very beginning.
Yeah, the startup economy it's based almost entirely on this idea of becoming a billionaire off of the startup idea. And so it's a fun game to play. You're like, venture capitalists are basically playing roulette, like by putting their chips on the startups they think are going to hit it big. And it's just kind of fun. Like, it's like the excitement of the possibilities are there. And so I think that's what's fueling it. And so we're not exactly offering that opportunity with it. And so we're not as attractive to that world, I think. But it's something we can't do because of the nature of what we're doing. Though it is, we do entertain, investment ideas from people that are mission aligned with us, but it's very tricky.
There's a special sort of investment that we're looking to take.
Can we you mentioned like the play money beta. Do you want to mention even like kind of the next phase as far as, like the more like open beta where what we're looking to do? Maybe that kind of answers the prototype question too, as far as like, the next phase, maybe, 2,000 beta testers, and is it going to be, all over the country or in a certain place? And,
we want to open it up pretty, to as many people as we can, just at the play money level. There's just a hiccup with the way that our bank connection partner works, and that once you go past 100 people using, it's called Plaid. It's a way that you connect your bank to apps. Once you go over 100 people, you end up having to pay them. And so we're trying to avoid that at this point until we have the money to pay them. So that's, again, what some of the crowdfund money will go towards, is being able to open it up to more people.
We also have, there's a series of phases of beta. So the first real phase of beta was this play money beta, where it's tracking actual bank accounts and doing calculations on, what the payouts and the pledges would be based on real user data and getting real user experience, and working out the user flow and what the page feels like and things like that. Next is a real money beta that we'll be building toward, which we start small again in a parallel platform, and start with a few of us transacting real money until we know that we have all the kinks worked out of that, so that there's not someone being overdrawn. There's a whole list of things that we have on our schedule to like engineering problems to figure out to make sure it works securely and safely. And then a later phase of beta before a public launch we want to do is local pilots. So there's a lot of potential for Comingle to be spun off in small parallel versions to the large national version, where we could run a UBI pilot, for example, where anyone in a set of zip codes could join, and it could grow to any amount, and it could be subsidized by philanthropies. It could be something like that, and we could run these local initiatives in a more controlled way to be more responsive when the real money is flowing, to see how it's working, and get the final tweaks in before we open it up to the general public, because we don't want to be in the situation of Obamacare, when they opened that up to the public, and I guess like someone's brother had designed the site and it immediately crashed. We want to learn what kind of infrastructure we need to build it out, so that if it really does go viral, if people get excited and we get 10 million people want to join on the first day, we're ready for it.
Another question here, and this it's really, I think maybe JP missed the very beginning, but the question is essentially, this is complicated stuff. Do you have like formulations of simple elevator pitches for messaging, and do you have videos that incorporate that to help people understand this stuff?
Yeah, definitely. There's some on the Indiegogo page. So head on over there, and Josh puts together really good videos. And there's some on the Comingle YouTube page as well that are meant to really lay it out as simply as possible. We welcome all your feedback. That and comingle.us is our website too. We have a bunch of that just right on our main website. So yeah, go check it out. Whatever is still confusing to you, ask it on the Crowdfund, ask it to us directly at Comingle, or show up tomorrow or to our other future spaces and ask us there.
But it's a hard thing to communicate, and so we're trying different methods. We've gone through a lot of taglines and a lot of different visualizations, and it is difficult. And we're trying to do it in a way that people get. I think anybody that's tried to explain UBI to people has had similar problems. And so, yeah, I think the concept that we're running is, I think we've just landed on like it's money sharing. We're just letting people do that. And I think at first we shied away from that, or at least I did. Shied away from that term, like ride sharing or something, but just because it seemed a little bit like something people would just feel is weird. Like, we don't do that here. Like, we the money, that is not something that we're open to at this time. But it just like, since we've started working on it, I think it is, we're starting to get the sense that, oh, maybe people are open to it. Like, I think the pandemic helped a lot, and just like getting like just sort of increasing that feeling of connection, that we're sort of all invested in the same thing. And so now, like, that when I just kind of ran that tagline past myself again, I was like, maybe this is okay. So I don't know.
And my theory too is there's so much to just showing it working. We need a critical mass of people to show that the model works, but that's not half the population. That's 1,000 people. We've already got 3,000 people on the wait list. 1,000 people, we're doing something already pretty enormous. One of the biggest UBI pilots in history, and the first permanent one. And that's just when we open the gates. If we can build this model, that's what we're putting all our focus on during these beta phases. If we can build it so it works in a way that's trustworthy and efficient, and starts, becoming a metric against which other sorts of foundations and forms of giving have to compare each other. And if the people who are using it are happy with it, it should grow organically. So to the extent that we need to tap into the public with marketing, like with this campaign, we're trying out so much stuff to see what works, but the real growth is going to happen when we just show that it works, and people see what it's doing and want to be part of it.
Yeah, the best marketing is going to be when somebody that needed $50 on a week that they didn't have it for something, and that person tells somebody else, oh, I'm using this app that helped me do it. That's going to be way better than any tagline we think of. So.
Angie has a question, and she's you should be able to speak now, Angie.
Yes, I just unmuted myself. So I'm going to throw you all a little bit of a hardball, excuse me. But Oprah is doing
Mm-hmm.
a UBI type
Yeah, the Maui's People
help.
Fund.
Mm-hmm.
And if you'll look in the comments, I did the breakdown of the 10 million. I'd like you all to answer a question for me, is why aren't you all working side by side with Oprah? Obviously, she's new at this, and obviously, you all have a lot of experience. So
we're very
that's my
open
question.
to working with Oprah. Do you have her phone number?
Is
No,
she
but
on here? I think she's on here, right?
I follow her, and I suggest that she's got minions out there. Not millions, but minions who I'm sure are tagged. When she's tagged, they look at her. Who's tagging her? Is it positive? Is it negative? Is it informative? Is it educational? Is it real? Is it not real? So those are my questions. Thank you all. I've been listening attentively while I'm getting ready to go to work. And you see that my hashtag is bookkeeping is my superpower.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing it for 30 years. You know a person when you see their books.
Mm-hmm. We could use a bookkeeper if you need a job. So.
I'm sorry, if I could clone myself, I would by now.
Yeah.
Thank you. So
Thanks,
please
Angie.
answer my question. Please
Can I
look
talk
at my
about
math.
Can I talk about Oprah for a minute? Like, it's a very good example of like the kind of thing I dug into in that video about billionaires. It's like one billionaire can make a difference in a whole bunch of people's lives. And does it need to take an island burning before somebody realizes that? Like, if maybe it does, and that's kind of the question we're asking, is that, like, does somebody's money need to have a visible effect before they're willing to put it out there? Like, she can see that there are people hurting. She knows her money can help them, right? And because she's probably been to this, to the villages there, and once. Is that a requirement before people are willing to, make themselves less of a billionaire? I don't know. So, what do you guys think?
I just want to add too. It's interesting to ask about the Maui's People Fund, and just so everybody, if you don't know, Oprah and The Rock got together, and inspired by what Dolly Parton did in Tennessee after the Gatlinburg fire, where Oprah set up the My People's Fund and provided $1,000 a month to everyone there who lost their homes, and provided $1,000 a month for 6 months, with a $5,000 payment in the last month, for a total of $10,000 to help everybody, get through that. Oprah and The Rock started up the Maui's People Fund, and they seeded it with $10 million. And everyone who has been displaced from their homes in Maui, who's able to, prove that they were displaced, will get $1,200 a month for as long as possible, according to what their goal is. And I actually was really excited about that when I read that news. And I actually made a petition on change.org. And the petition, actually, I posted my petition prior to what Oprah and The Rock did, and my goal was to actually get people to learn about what what Dolly did in Tennessee, and to encourage a federal response of monthly payments in Maui for those displaced. So I was really happy when Oprah and The Rock started doing $12 a month with their Maui People's Fund. And but even with that, like, we can't just rely on celebrities to do this stuff. So I still want a federal response, and so also I encourage people to sign and share the petition and change.org that was, would get a monthly income to everyone in Maui, and not just those displaced. I see it as a great opportunity to do a federal UBI pilot there in Maui, because also it's a good example of how, like, the only people impacted are not those who lost their homes. The tourism industry has taken a huge hit in Maui. So a lot of people, a lot of stores have already closed. People are earning less money because of less tourists. So they still have jobs, but their incomes have gone down. Like, the entire island of Maui, the entire economy has taken a hit. And although it will be a great help for those impacted to get $12 a month, they are not the only ones who are impacted. So I think that combines with Comingle really well, because Comingle, thanks to being universal, you do reach all those people that you don't know and would otherwise have to, like, test, to say, oh, are you sufficiently impacted? And Comingle doesn't do any such tests. It just makes sure that you don't fall beneath whatever 7% of the average income floor is. And imagine too if everyone in Maui had already been part of Comingle, when this happened. So it would be really useful still for Oprah and The Rock to come in with $12 a month, but also you would at least have something to make sure that people's income never falls to zero. And I think that's, a key part of Comingle and just UBI in general, is making sure that there's a floor below which no one can ever fall.
And it is actually kind of a capability that is part of Comingle to be able to target additional funds towards particular zip codes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure what the test is for how you get the money in Maui. Is it just a zip code that you're entering, or
there's a proof that you were displaced, I think Scott said.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so I have a lot of thoughts about the strategy question that you're asking here, which is getting influencers and big celebrities who are doing these sorts of things involved in the Comingle campaign. And throughout this month, we want to ramp this up to the point where we can get this in front of those sorts of eyeballs. We need enough people behind this and supporting this to get that attention, to draw that attention. And what we can say to someone like Oprah or The Rock, or all of the celebrities that gave money to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation to support the strikes, or any of these other things that are going on, is, now imagine if there was a mechanism that would take all of that money and get it to all of the people involved, that week, that day, and on an ongoing basis. That's what we're building, is a way to distribute that money much more effectively. And it's not only money that is coming from some rich external source, like we said before, and coming down, but it also, among the group, you have a group of people, whether it's the actors or the people in Maui themselves, that are sort of subsidizing their own basic income among each other. So it's helping distribute the money among themselves in a way that proportionately favors the people who need it the most. So yeah, we have very strong outreaches that we're hoping to make to, Oprah and The Rock and people like that during this campaign. And in order to be taken seriously at that level, we have to develop our community to the point where, we're loud enough, to reach those ears.
Paul, you have a question or comment?
Yes. Hello, Scott. It's been a while. And Conrad,
Hey,
nice
Paul.
to meet you.
You too.
Hey, I'm kind of checking out this Comingle site and all that, and I love what you have going here and everything. One of the questions that I have that some other people may have and all that would be information security and all that, like our banking information and stuff like that. How secure is it, and what are you guys doing to ensure that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question.
So it's the actual financial data is we're using the same mechanism that you use when you're hooking up with Venmo or PayPal to transfer that data. So the actual transit from from your bank to Comingle is safe, and once that information is in our databases, it's being encrypted in the same way that it's being encrypted at banks. So it's the data itself is all it's very secure in that way. But yeah, it is, there's always vulnerabilities that happen, and we need to tackle those and look at and sort of dig into the various ways that somebody sneaky might be able to exploit it.
Right. Which is always going to be changing. And it's always like the third-party vendor we use that separates us from your bank data, is like Plaid is used in all sorts of financial technology, like Mint, Acorn, whatever the different things are that use it. It's something, I think I looked it up about a year ago, something like 25% of Americans have their bank accounts connected through Plaid to some app or other. So these are the things that maybe as partners we can help pressure them better on their own security. But that's a question that's always going to come up in terms of security: is how much can we do on our end to protect your security, but also how much is our security dependent upon these larger platforms that are out there already facilitating these roles of security.
Yeah. So that's another way that the crowdfund money will be spent, is really doing a deep dive into the potential holes in the security that we haven't thought of yet.
I imagine some white hat hackers will be utilized too to see if they can find any vulnerabilities. There will be some stress testing and stuff as part of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know a few white hat hacker type people.
Well, thank you for the answer and all that, and I supported what you guys are doing and all that. I mean, more people need to get on board, and I agree we need to get this going on a federal level and all that. So, again, thank you for the work that you guys do. It's greatly appreciated.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you. How about a quick update? We're up to 22,500 from 236 backers. I don't know where we started, but it seemed like it was like 1,000 less an hour ago. So
Yeah, I think it has been 1,000 since the space began. And I didn't count how many backers, maybe over a dozen, I think, new backers.
I don't know if anyone who's listening was one of them, but if you were, thank you. Yeah, it's worth a shout out.
Yeah. And again,
like somebody already tweeted to Oprah in the Rock.
Oh, let's.
Faye has done
what
that.
What did they say?
I think she's on here.
Yeah, that
please
was
come get help with your initiative, Oprah in the Rock. People are supporting. Anyway, it's just on here.
Good old Faye.
We'll try, or did that not work again? Yeah, for some reason his just doesn't work. Maybe Charbax. Do you have a question or a comment? Charbax, are you muted? Turn that off if you want to speak. Okay, or Matthew Clouds again too, if that works. Either of you? Okay. How about Faye? Faye, I know definitely Faye knows how to use this. Hi, Faye.
It's really nice to get a chance to chat with you for a minute. I just came to support you before I go out for lunch. I am wondering, what is Comingle, because I kind of missed the beginning. Is it okay to restate some of this for people who just got in?
Yeah, it's a very good idea anyways to do that. Like, this is my first time hosting, so of course I'm terrible at it, but I know that what I'm supposed to do is do like these refreshers every, 10 or 15 minutes or something to make sure everybody knows what's being discussed. What we're discussing is the launch of the Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign for Comingle. And Comingle is an app being developed that's based on UBI that would provide a small basic income floor to every member of the community who joins, where every member would pledge 7% of their income, and then the total of that each week would be divided amongst the entire group. So most likely the average is going to be somewhere around $50 a week as your floor. So if your income is zero, then that week you would get $50. And then maybe the next week, maybe you come out even, so that, you know, the 7% of your income equals what you get back and you don't get anything. And then if your income is above the average, then you're a net donor to everybody else. So this is a real UBI in practice among the entire community. And the goal is to get 100,000 people at least to be part of this platform after it's fully developed and launched by the end of 2025. And again, that's potentially $200 per month or around there, perpetual, permanently funded, scalable, $200 per month basic income funded by the commingling and generosity of everybody in the group, you know, in an act of solidarity.
The TLDR is it's UBI in an app, and it's how we can do it together without waiting for the government. I am putting the link to the crowdfund in the tweets in the replies to this Twitter space, and there's tons of information in there. Ask any questions on the FAQ there. Go to our main website, comingle.us. Yeah, and reminder, another refresher, tomorrow at noon Eastern, 9 Pacific, we're doing another space. We're going to be doing a lot of these spaces as movement building and getting as sort of like a relaunch of the UBI movement. And tomorrow our special guest is Andrew Yang. So come back for that.
Curious what he'll have to say about this.
He's going to hate it. He's like, this is a terrible idea. Yeah. I hate UBI.
Well, I've been enjoying seeing Andrew Yang next to the UBI again, because I know he took a real long hiatus while he was working on the Forward Party, and I feel like he's coming back around in full circles and you know, allowing people to sort of, I don't know, but I feel like some people lost trust in him because they weren't sure if he was still going in the same direction, and I feel like it's a renewal of trust for people.
I also feel like there's only so much one of us can do, right? We have this system where we try to elevate these individual heroes, and it really has to be a movement. And one thing that's very limiting in a political campaign is that it's temporary. It's based on a single personality, and then what happens when that campaign is over? It's a very difficult ask for someone to be our ongoing spokesman, hero, whatever, forever. I think nobody, you know, I've had my disagreements with Andrew in the past. I love the guy. He's a friend. I think it's unfair to ask him to be the face of the entire UBI movement. I think nobody in history has done more than him to put the idea on the map, and it's our job to take it the next step and build from there. And he's welcome to join us.
Okay, so back to this Comingle thing, okay? Mm-hmm. Am I understanding correctly that you're saying everybody who joins Comingle is going to be contributing some of their income to it, and then at the end of the month or whenever, it redistributes all of it to everybody back in an equal, equitable manner, or what?
Not quite. That's just a way of understanding it, as if more easily wrapping people's heads around, like, what if we all got together, like everyone and all the 23 people in here got together, we each threw a percentage of our income into a pot and then counted it up and then gave it back out, right? Then the people who had less than the average would end up with more than they started, and whatever. The problem with doing it exactly that way is the people who have no money have a hard time throwing stuff in because they got to pay their bills. So what we're actually doing is we're running everything as a calculation up front based on what people made. It's based on the very last week and it's up to date with your real-time income because it's tracked by your bank account. And everyone pledges 7% of their income. So that's a dollar amount that is held in a ledger as in this is how much you're pledging to put towards the pot. All of those pledges add up to the entire Comingle pool for the week. So say it's $1,000 between the 22 of us, and that means we're each, entitled to about $50 of it, right? No money is actually transacted. There's going to be one transaction that goes out for everybody. So if your 7% contribution would be $30 that week, your $30 would balance out with that $50, and the one transaction you would have is you would get $20 that week. If say Felix, his 7% contribution adds up to $70 that week, then his 70 contribution balances out with his 50 back, and his one transaction that week is a contribution of $20. So we do all the math so that no one's having any money taken out of their account when in the end they're just going to be getting money. And we also, in terms of our security and just user friendliness, we're putting measures in place to make sure that nobody's ever overdrafted. Because even if you're someone who's making enough money to be putting in that week, you could have just had a bunch of big bills come up and there's nothing in your account for us to take out. So we'll let you, build, we won't take it from the account until you can pay it, and you'll build back into that over the following weeks until you're caught back up. It should be user friendly.
So I'm kind of understanding it like maybe instead of tithing to a church, you say, I'm going to, tithe to this community. And then, each month, some portion of your money will be commingled and given out to other people who need it.
Yeah.
And that might be you. So.
Okay, now, but the problem I'm having, because I'm very low income, extremely, I don't even have a bank account.
Yes, this is an issue. And it's one that we're looking to figure out a way to help with. At this point, in order for the security to be maintained, like a bank account is required just because, it needs to, that's just how it's working. So I think the solution that we're looking towards is figuring out a banking partner that makes it easy to set up a bank account and that works very fluidly with Comingle.
Okay, and what if somebody were to go ahead and create a fake bank account in which it never receives any income, because you can make multiple bank accounts as a single person.
Yeah, this is also a problem that we're looking into and we've got a bunch of strategies for how to deal with that situation. But is there anything preventing somebody from doing that? Not exactly. And so in the same way that you can cheat on your taxes, you could probably cheat on Comingle. But we're looking, we've got ways to make that difficult.
Well, I know I brought it up myself, but I also want to say that, if somebody's willing to work with Comingle, and then they know whether they're going to be donors or whether they're going to be receivers. And hopefully the people who want to donate are there because they have chosen to do so. I mean, we can't force anybody to participate.
Yeah. So there will be a different level of scrutiny for people that are willingly paying in, because we can kind of know that who's going to be trying to cheat a system that makes it so they can pay money. Like that's not really cheating. It's maybe they're not paying their full 7% of their entire income for the week, which is. That would be dishonest, and it wouldn't be like in the spirit of what we're doing. But it's also not something we're going to complain a whole lot about. But when an account is continuously drawing the full amount of the payout, that's going to be a pretty big red flag. That will probably require some additional verification.
think we lost Conrad at some point.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, there he is. And no, go ahead. Yeah, I was just going to invite Ariel Nation to speak next, but yeah, go ahead and add more.
Part of the security part of this is, we want to, first of all, build a culture where it's people know exactly why they're being part of this, right? They're being part of it to be part of a community. If you're ever caught, you're gone forever. If you're trying to scam the community out of $50 for a week or two, and then you lose it for the rest of your life, that's probably not worth it. When it comes to large scale fraud, like people starting up a bunch of different bank accounts, the part of the security measure that's going to be very important in Comingle is unique identity verification. It's not just any bank account can join. It has to be a specific person with a social security number, right? And so we'll have to have a couple of redundant ways to make sure we have individual people signed up, right? The other thing is to make sure that people don't have multiple bank accounts and they're not sharing the one with us that they get all their money in, and they're just sharing with us the one that sits empty so they can collect a paycheck. Hopefully a lot of this stuff isn't even that much of a desire for people based on the fact that they're joining for the right reasons and not to scam $50 a week. Like if someone's making a lot of money, why would they scam $50 a week? But still, we want to make sure they can't do this or do it easily. So other methods of verification, which are like, soft credit check or once a year verifying income through taxes or things like that, made as streamlined as possible, but also as some sort of a check that lets people know that we really are taking it seriously, that people put in what they're supposed to be giving in. And then on top of that framework of general trust in the competence of the platform, that's where we build the culture of we're doing this for a reason. We're not doing this to we're doing this to join a community. So some of the work we need to do in building that culture as we grow out our additional tools and as we start making enough money to sort of expand the functionality is to make sure that people feel like they're connecting with people and not just plugging into an app. Like people can really connect with other human beings and feel that. And it's not just some numbers flying by on a screen. And lastly, when you talk about being unbanked, that's a huge issue. Obviously, it's a huge issue, and it's what a lot of guaranteed income pilots and things tend to focus on most. It's like, these are the people who need money the most. Let's figure out a way to do a pilot for 100 people where we find people who are specifically unbanked and get the money to them. But what that necessarily does with these limited versions of targeted and means-tested programs is it leaves a huge population of people out of it that could have been in it, many of whom are also unbanked, for the sake of getting to only people who are unbanked. Whereas what we're trying to do is build up the power among the community to offer a new solution for the unbanked. So if we get to a point where, say, we have 50,000 members, we have around $25,000 a week coming in revenue, and we're using 2/3 of that for our operations, and we're at a point where we now have this extra money to use that's not going to shareholders because we don't have any shareholders, then one of the first things I want to do is figure out a way to either partner with some sort of neobank or non-commercialized bank, or eventually add our own options to help people who have never been banked become banked in a very easy way and have a place to keep their money. And so secondarily, we're solving the banking problem. Much like with UBI, the first implied step is we get everyone a bank account, because that way we can transfer everyone money like a federal bank or something. We want to be able to build a model of that as well. And one quick anecdote on that, I ran a UBI pilot for the docuseries I worked on called Bootstraps. And, we worked with a banking partner to make sure it was smooth and easy and people were getting weekly direct deposits and things like that without having to think about it. But I had to work with the bank and had to be connected with people on the inside to say, hey, we have an individual who is homeless and doesn't have an address and has never had a bank account. You need to pull the strings. You need to pull so that we can make this work, so we can get this person this money. at large scale, it's impossible to do that very heavy touch thing for everyone who's unbanked. So we have to create a system that makes it very easy to get people unbanked in a big way. And the unfortunate part of that is that we need to start by setting up the Comingle mechanism itself until it's a powerful enough, strong enough community to build the tools to invite in the unbanked and to solve that problem as well.
Ariel Nation, do you have your question?
Yes. So I was just thinking that when they talk about like how jobs are like plentiful and everything like that, a lot of these jobs that I'm seeing that are opening it up are like mostly minimum wage and kind of like afloat. The way I see it is like the economy has three tiers, like a survival amount of money to kind of like keep you afloat, and discretionary. And I think the economy, it usually goes better when a lot more people have the kind of like discretionary income, because if you don't have discretionary income, you can't go to that comedy show that I was just at yesterday. You're not buying that kind of like big screen TV. So I think that's it. And one last thing, Josh Bocanegra is running on a UBI platform in the district that he's running in near West Hollywood. So I just wanted to let you guys know that.
Yeah, I actually noticed him stop by this space earlier, and I was going to invite him to speak when we got to that portion, but he was only in there for like the first, I don't know, 30 minutes or
He's really
something.
busy.
But yeah, it was great to see him.
I've been watching him. He's been exciting to watch. Like, he's coming out pretty hard and running an unabashed campaign for it. There's a few politicians trying to do that, and it's really good to see. I think David Kim, is that his name, is also doing that in California.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm in very close contact with him, so if you have anything you want to talk, like ask him or want to know from him, you can take it through me. I have I'm in personal contact.
Yeah, tell him we're doing stuff all month and come back to our spaces and he can talk. He can be our special guest. That'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Put him in touch. We've talked about different ways that Comingle can be used for like actual government initiatives. Like if somebody's wanting to start a UBI in their city, it's a way to do it. It is to just say, we want everybody in the city to sign up, and when you do, you will be entitled to this UBI. And then also having some other source of funds that's coming from, wherever it is that this money's coming from that is being proposed, that it can be factored into the payout amount. Yeah.
Was there a question about the jobs, or was it really just more of a comment about how everybody does better when they're
I just want to make a comment because I find it very very ironic that here's the funny thing, right? I was told ever since I was young, a degree is the way to success, and blah 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 and blah 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 about a degree. And a lot of times, in schools, we don't get any financial education, and we're just like thrown out there. And let me just be honest, a lot of these career centers at these schools and colleges are as feckless as F. I don't know if I can curse here. They suck. They're feckless, and they suck. And then they just say, well, at least your parents have money, so be happy that you're not poor. And it's like, then why did I come here for, you assholes? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? At least, because a lot of, I grew up in an affluent community, but it's still your, mother's money and your father's money and your family's money. It's not yours. But a lot of these schools and colleges in affluent communities don't care if you're making your own money. They just care if you just get the grades and you just get the accolades and all this other crap. And then when it comes to jobs, they like hardly help you. And I find it ironic. This is the juxtaposition between me and Josh. Josh came from like the rough side of the world, kind of like in New York, and had a child at a young age, and he was in survival mode. And now that we can see eye to eye, I'm just saying, look at this. Like, you're a high school dropout, and you've learned how to kind of be an entrepreneur and make money on your own. And here I am as like a college graduate, and I've strung together a whole bunch of minimum wage jobs. Now the point isn't that, like, oh, my family can support me, but I'm just thinking, like, if I didn't have their support, these programs and these people in them, they suck balls. Like, what are we doing here, you know? So that's why I'm as passionate about UBI and its politics as I am. Because if I'm having a hard time coming from affluence
Yeah.
to, like, in this job market, I can only imagine how hard it is from the people who don't come there, from these systems that suck. They suck. I mean,
Yeah. There's like this sense that you're supposed to, like, you kind of it. You need to understand how money works, and that, like, it's your financial illiteracy that's causing all of your money woes. And if you just understood how money works a little better, you know how to scrimp and save and invest, then, like, suddenly you would be this, perfectly successful individual. And, like, that took me a long time to realize that. Like, I was old. I was like, I still don't understand this stuff. Like, I'm still not good at managing my finances, and, like, the only time I'm any good at it is when I actually have some money to work with. Like, when you have no money, like, the last thing you're trying to figure out is, like, where can I save this money that I don't have? Like, how can I invest my $0 in something?
And really quick, if your money's coming from inheritance, it's nice that you have a place to, like, be at, but at the end of the day, it's not really yours because there are so many strings attached to it anyway.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, part of, like, what we're just trying to make a financial application that just takes all the thinking out of it. You don't have to be financially literate to be able to to be able to use Comingle, because it's really just, like, it's the ultimate normal person's financial app. Like, it's just giving you money, or it's letting you contribute it. It's very, very simplified.
And it's set it and forget it if you want. Like, as we build out more things to try to give people options to engage, it's super important to us that there is no metric that says we want to amplify engagement or maximize engagement or clicks or anything like that, because the revenue model is that 1% utility fee, and we're not allowing ourselves to make revenue off of anything else. Then all of a sudden, we've hopefully dodged most of what makes Facebook and Twitter and all those, or X, I guess, it makes them sort of vulnerable to the need to make an infinite amount of money off of mechanisms of, showing people ads and outrage and clickbait. And all of a sudden, I try to post something on Facebook to my friends, and nobody ever sees it, and all we ever see are ads and misinformation, or, like, things that's like, why am I getting this? I remember 10 years ago when it was about just connecting me to my friends and keeping in touch. Now I don't know anything about my friends. All I know is, like, whatever is gonna hopefully make me as angry as possible, so that I'll click a bunch and share a bunch. It's like, it's not made for me. It's made to take money and emotions out of me and spin up profit. We have to get away from that.
Right, let's do one more question from Nick, and then we'll call it a space and come back tomorrow. Nick, what's your question or comment?
Thanks so much, Scott, and Comingle and everybody for putting this space together. I wish that I knew about this yesterday or last night. I would have promoted the heck out of it.
Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, we do a really good job of promoting the Forward Twitter Spaces, and so look, next time you guys are doing this, I hope you guys let us know, and we can all send this space to the moon. Maybe
tomorrow.
Tomorrow
at noon. Andrew Yang is going to be our guest.
Awesome. Okay. All right. Well, I'll pump that, and we'll see if we can get. We've got about 100 people here in California. Again, like Ariel was saying, our SoCal coordinator is also the campaign manager for David Scott, and we're close with Josh Bocanegra. So, anyway, cool. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, guys. I'll see you tomorrow.
Cool. And get on our mailing lists and stuff, or you'll get updates if you put $1 into the crowdfund.
Yes, I did. So
Thanks.
Thank you.
yeah, man. So I've got a question, and sorry if I did miss. So sorry if anyone asked this again, but what do you see UBI as maybe like a creative force, maybe that it will cause a lot of industries to receive funding that were maybe underfunding? Like I see a lot of
absolutely.
elder. Yeah. Okay. So you think that it will have a bigger economic impact than it would cost?
It opens up a whole new market, a whole new labor market that is what people want to see done who don't have money. Like right now, the labor market is you get paid to do things that people are either willing to buy from you or pay you to do. And that's it. So care work, creating art, whatever. It's like you maybe get paid for creating art after the fact if it finds a market, but there is no pre-market for that work. And so something that basic income does that I really love as an actor who had to give it up to try to fix the economy is it front loads the market, and it just assumes we're going to do something good with that money and that trust and build something that's worth the investment. So it's like a leap of faith sort of thing. A lot of people can't really wrap their heads around, but seeing it as an investment where we're sort of seeding a marketplace of ideas that no longer have to come from people with money. They can come from people with talent and people with passion.
Yeah, there's a whole world of just untapped, human capital that's not being used because people are so worried about, how to pay something that's $50, how to just pay the rent. Like if that part of your brain can shut off, then there's suddenly a whole other world of things you could be doing and things we could be seeing from people. And really, you can feel that potential is there just by the amount that people are willing to work on stuff that they're not getting paid for. Like the entire internet is almost based on people just putting stuff out there because it's fun, because they feel like it. I don't think a lot of people are getting paid much from Wikipedia, but they're out there just telling people what they know about a given subject, and like we need to figure out how to pay for this stuff that we're already kind of doing and would love to be doing more of.
Better politics. I would love to pay for better politicians.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't have the money and
yeah, if you're not
that's a whole other side.
If you're not in scarcity mode, then our politics will be better. If everyone is able to contribute money to grassroots, candidates, to make them actually competitive against the big money candidates, that'll make politics better. Like those are two key things. And like I just want to mention too that one of my personal favorite articles that I've written mine was the Monsters Inc. argument for basic income, and I love that because there's it's about how in Monsters Inc. the monsters are fueled by the screams of children. And then like only towards the end of the movie do they figure out that like the joy and laughter of kids is actually like more powerful. So they're able to generate this monster utopia based off of children's joy instead. And I think that's really about this shift from a mostly extrinsically motivated society to a more intrinsically motivated society where people really are choosing to do things because that they just really want to do those things. And part of that will still be earning money, which hopefully will pay even more for things that people don't want to do. But part of it too is being able to actually choose to afford these things that maybe it takes like a couple years to get some new startup or business off the ground. Maybe it takes a bunch of unpaid work before something starts to pay, or maybe someone does not at all want to earn any money and really just wants to do it, and they should be able to do that.
And I was very surprised. I'm in a very fortunate position to have been able to see a UBI pilot play out. I saw 20 people around the country, very different walks of life, and we went in scientifically, like we're going to see how this is going to go. We're going to show the good and the bad. and we were gearing up for it to be sort of a slow burn, because intuitively, it's like people are going to start getting money. They're going to sort of stop the bleeding for the first year or so. They're going to sort of, build up a plan and move forward. And what really surprised me was how fast everything happened, how quickly people took action with that money, because it's not about how much you saved, it's about the knowledge of the reliability and the ability to plan on it. So we had people who had daunting issues in their lives, like debts or problems that they hadn't been able to really address for a very long time, or you kind of look away from the things you don't have an answer for and just hope that an answer will come. Like, someday I'll have a better job, I'll deal with my school debt or whatever. Until then, I'm going to pay the minimums. What else you want me to do? Or conversely, people who have an idea or a passion that's like, well, I'm going to save up for this. Maybe I'll work for the next 2 years and have enough money to try. And it's always pushing it off to a later day, because you're focused on what you can do now and your immediate safety. The second people get that income security, it just unleashes them. And so people were, quitting their jobs, getting new jobs and upgrades. They were moving across the state and putting down payments on new houses. They were getting out of their payday loan debt. They were starting businesses. They were investing in their houses immediately. It was immediate. And we're like, holy crap. And it turned from a documentary film into a docu-series, because there was just too much happening. Like, we saw these people just light up, because all of a sudden that light at the end of the tunnel was there.
Well, yeah, that's I think a great thing to end on. We're at a little bit over 2 hours. I just want to thank everybody for coming to join this space. And Conrad, you just want to refresh the numbers to see what the latest is.
The latest numbers are 237 backers, $22,553. I think we're going to hit a third of our goal today on day 2. Let's pump it up. And a reminder for everyone who's gotten here, apparently Indiegogo lets you contribute a lot of times, and it bumps our backer number. So in the effort of making this page look as impressive as possible to the people we're starting to share it widely with, one thing people could do is like a recurring dollar donation, another excuse to share it out. And follow us and come back tomorrow for our Twitter space with Andrew Yang, same time.
Yeah, and again, if you want to make sure to catch all these, follow me, follow Conrad, follow Comingler, and especially, subscribe to the Comingler account to make sure you don't miss anything from that. Sign up to the newsletters, mine, the Comingle newsletter, and the ITSA Foundation newsletter. Like, really cover all your bases so you don't miss anything. And we'll be doing more of these spaces. And thank you so much for showing up to this one. And maybe we'll see some of you tomorrow too.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks everyone. Bye.